Show of hands, is this the first time you're taking a plant lovers tour? All right, great, congratulations, thank you. This is my very first tour giving one, so we're in it together. I went and picked the Tree-mendous trees. These are trees that are either big or big in my heart. Then, secondly, I went and said, well, have they been in other plant lovers tours? And some of them have, some of them have not. So there's gonna be a bit of a rerun for you guys, and but I've got a whole clipboard full of trivia and stuff, so hopefully we'll have some new facts and figures for you guys. So welcome. I've got 12 plants on my tour, and we're going to start here and then go in a big loop and end up pretty much right back there again. So today's April Fool's Day. It's a great weather day. Yesterday it was 10 degrees hotter and it threatened rain all day, and tomorrow is going to be hot as blazes, so we really lucked out. I am playing an April Fool's joke on y'all, though. I have asked all the trees to dump a bunch of pollen on your cars while you're on the tour. So, you know, April Fool's on you. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is one of those plants that gets put into a lot of tours, which I didn't realize until after I had already selected it for my tour. But so this is Cinnamomum wilsonii, Wilson's camphor tree. This is a Asian tree, and kind of India, Australia, over to Southeast China, Southeast Asia, that kind of place. And it has been growing here since, here's your trivia, since 2003. So it's a little over 20 years old. It's already attained this height in just 20 years. We got this plant from woodlanders back in 2003. It is very, very hard to get. Apparently, occasionally Woodlanders has it. It will occasionally throw up a seedling, and we will pluck those out and sometimes have them available. And it doesn't really root that well. But this is a wonderful tree. I'm also going to peel a little bark off, and please don't follow my example and do it. And we're going to do the same thing. I want you to sniff it and pass it on. You'll see why it's called the camphor tree. Smells like cold medicine. That's where it gets its common name, the camphor tree. And the leaves smell very lemony. They were real nice, weren't they? It's known for its fragrant tree leaves and bark. It also has a fragrant flower, but it's not in flower right now. In China, they use this a lot in traditional Chinese medicine. So it's a real popular plant over there for herbal uses. We planted it here. You might be wondering why we planted such a big tree-mendous tree right next to this building. Well, when we planted it, it was only about this tall. And we didn't know if it was going to be cold hardy for us. Okay, so we wanted to give it a little bit of protection. It certainly doesn't need it, but of course we're a degree or two warmer than we used to be too back in 2003. And it has just grown tremendously. I can only imagine what beautiful symmetrical shape it would have if we didn't have it right by this tree. It is an evergreen. And it does very well in this area. It's doing great for us. This is the genus name Cinnamomum. Does that sound like anything? Anything we might eat?
Cinnamon.
Sounds like cinnamon, exactly. This is a cousin to the plants that we get cinnamon off of. Those are also in the genus Cinnamomum. Those are Cinnamomum verna and Cinnamomum zealandicum. And the part that we get the cinnamon from is the bark. We peel the bark off of a...
Peel the bark off, and then the second layer is where you can get the cinnamon, and you just dry it in the sun. Exactly.
You got it.
Or do you get the powder too? No.
You have to grind the bark to get the powder. But yeah. But this one we don't use for cinnamon. We use it, we just use it for its aesthetic appeal. In fact, Cinnamomum comes from the Greek word cinnamomum, which is the Greek word for the for spice. It translates to English as spice. All right. So, and wilsonii, the epithet on this name, is from Ernest Wilson, a famous Chinese plant explorer. And I'm going to try and give you a little trivia about the name and some stuff about each plant we visit. Hopefully, some of it's interesting. Anyway, so this is our first plant on the tour, Cinnamomum wilsonii.
Is it deciduous?
It's evergreen. And there are other cinnamomums you can find easier on the market. They are more shrub-like. They are also evergreen. They are all fragrant to some level or another. They might not all smell like lemons and camphor. Some of them do, some of them don't. So, all right, our next stop, we are going to go this way, back through the entrance, and then across the parking lot and over to an old part of the Arboretum. That's our hawk. Everyone, if you look up, you can see our hawk there. He is a resident here. He's here all the time.
Oh.
And he does a great job at catching mice and snakes and other creepy crawlies. And he's just very beautiful, always very picturesque. I love it every time I come across him. He hangs out over by my office on the fence quite a bit. And there are times that he's very calm. And there are times that I'll walk right by him and be within a few feet of him. He won't move and I won't see him. So that's our hawk. I call him Hudson Hawk after the movie from the 80s. But that's just me. We have in this tour of 12 plants, we have 3 kind of big gaps. That was the first big gap between plants. And this is, so this is a redbud. It's a Asian redbud. It's a hybrid of species we're not really sure of. We think it's Cercis glabra. It's been recorded in our database a bunch of different ways. It came to us as Cercis racemosa, and then we said, no, it's not that. Let's call it chinensis. No, it's not that. Let's call it glabra. No, it's not pure glabra. So now we just are going to record it as Cercis hybrid number 3 because we have a hybrid number 1 and 2 elsewhere in the garden. The reason I put this on my Tree-mendous trees tour is because it's very, very big for a redbud. Okay, our native redbuds, Cercis canadensis, top out in most gardens in the 15 to 25 foot range, and that's pushing it. In the wild, where they're crowded in and they're really stretching for the light, you might see them up to 40 feet, approaching that. This is taller than 40 feet, this hybrid. It's currently 41 feet tall. We got it in 1996 as a seed that was wild collected in Hubei, China. And we're still working out what it is, but we love it because it has a trait that none of the native redbuds have, and a couple of traits actually. But the one I want to mention first is that it is slightly fragrant. There are no fragrant redbuds in the United States. This one, and unfortunately, it is just out of bloom. I was sniffing all the redbuds just last week and the week before, and this one does have a mild, clean fragrance, floral fragrance, not perfumey or anything like that. And that's not a trait that redbud breeders are breeding for right now, but it'd be a really interesting one. Tim Alderton, our gardener here, apparently has time to sniff this a lot because he said the fragrance varies during the day. It goes up and down. And so that is one of the reasons it made my Tree-mendous trees list. Another reason is, and unfortunately it is just recently out of flower. You can see the old flowers and last year's seed pods actually. The flowers themselves, the individual little flowers are about twice as big, maybe even a little bigger than a normal redbud and a North American one. And the flower clusters were on a regular redbud, and we'll pass a bunch more. Well, kind of like this one. An individual cluster can be ping pong ball size, and these are more baseball size. So the clusters are bigger. Pale pink flowers, but they have these interesting, and you can still see them, these persistent calyces that are dark purple. And it's you don't really notice it on a lot of other redbuds, but on this one, it's very noticeable. So you get almost a bicolor effect. It's very, very attractive. It is, in fact, such a cool plant that we have plans to propagate it, put a cultivar name on it, and get it into the trade. But currently, the only place this exists in the world is right here. Okay, this Cercis hybrid number 3. Yeah, so the genus name Cercis comes from the Greek word Quercus, which is a reference to, if you can see these brown seed pods, they look a little bit like an old-fashioned weaver's shuttle, the little thing that would go back and forth on a loom. And so that's where the genus gets its name from. Now we're going to walk this way down towards that fence to plant number 3. All right. This is the next plant on our Tree-mendous plants tour. And actually, this one here and the one right over the shrub here are the same species. And it's got a long, weird name. It's pronounced Metasequoia glyptostroboides. All right. And it is the common name, which is what really people know it as, is dawn redwood. Now, dawn redwood's been one of my favorite plants for decades now, since I was a student. Not only is it a beautiful plant with this awesome bark, and older plants, this one's just starting to do it, but older plants flare at the base and they get really wide flared base. And sometimes these knees are so large you can like sit on them like a chair on the really old specimens. This is a conifer, okay, like a pine tree and whatnot, but it is a deciduous conifer. It loses its needles, all of them, every fall, and then they come back out in the spring. That's somewhat uncommon. But I really like it for this bark and the flare. This plant also has an incredible story. This plant was known in the fossil record before it was ever discovered in the wild. Okay, so this is one of those things you call a living fossil. All right. In 1941, in China, this forester was walking around and he came across a tree he was unfamiliar with. The locals in the area loved the tree. It was a big one, and they revered it, and they called it a water fir. And he was trying to figure out what it was. So he took it to some scientists, and they worked it out. And they said, this is a genus that we only know from the fossil record. Okay, and this plant at the time was almost extinct in the wild. We almost lost this plant, but once it became known to science and they could propagate it, and then it became known to landscape horticulture and it became popular. Now it's all over the world. This used to be native to the United States. Okay, this plant was in the 65 million years ago to about 5 million years ago, when it went extinct around here, there are fossils of it in Oregon, North Dakota, Canada, all over Japan, China. This was widespread tree up until fairly recently. Okay. In fact, this is the state fossil of Oregon. There's your trivia for that one. It can grow in regular garden conditions. It can also take some amount of wet. Okay, so this is a low spot in the garden. It tends to get a little soggy. This plant likes it fine. It can even take, for short periods of time, even more water, a little of inundation. Not so much as the taxodium. These are the native plants, trees, the bald cypress. They can actually sit in the water on the edge of a pond or in a swamp. But this one can't quite do that, but it is still pretty water tolerant, moisture tolerant. In the fall, these needles turn brown, but when I say they turn brown, they turn a pretty brown, not just a plain dull brown, but they turn kind of a coppery brown. And if you see this with a plain dull brown tree in the background, it really stands out, and actually you would consider it to say, hey, this has really nice fall foliage. So you can call this a fall foliage plant too, if you like brown as a color, which you should. Okay, one other interesting thing about this tree, kind of like sharks, it has not changed its form in millions and millions of years. This is functionally identical to the fossils that are 60 million years old that they have. So that is pretty rare to have that. Okay, so what does Metasequoia mean? Meta, the prefix meta comes from the Greek. It means either changed or transformed. And then sequoia is referring to the redwood tree, sequoia. This is, when they were first classifying this, they're like, this is kind of like a redwood tree. And so they gave it the name Metasequoia. Glyptostroboides is, whenever you see oides at the end of a botanical name, oides means looks like. So it looks like, and then whatever at the beginning of the name. So it looks like Glyptostrobis. Glyptostrobis is another conifer. So this is the transformed sequoia that looks like a Glyptostrobis. All right. So one of my favorite plants. Questions? Yeah.
What is the growth rate?
Growth rate is regular to fast. Okay, so 1 foot to 3 feet a year.
Does it depend on the type of tree, how deep the roots go, or does it just depend on how tall the tree is?
No, some trees just naturally produce tap roots that go straight down, and others produce lateral roots that extend far out. I don't know which one this one does.
If you're thinking of like a garden tree, you wouldn't want roots that go out like for foundation?
It depends. What you really don't want, and we're going to walk by some good examples of this, are big support roots that are above ground and stick way out and end up cracking your sidewalk. We're going to walk by plenty of those, and you'll see, I don't want that near my sidewalk. Others that do have lateral roots don't necessarily do that and are fine. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, come on in. We're going to talk about this tree next. This tree made my Tree-mendous trees list mostly because I walk by it every day. My office is right there and my mailbox is over there. So I'm walking by this all the time. It's a very pretty tree, especially in the fall when the small little nuts are forming. Now this tree is Pterocarya rhoifolia, okay, the Japanese wingnut. In fact, if you were to break this word apart, ptero and carya, the prefix ptero means wing, and you see the prefix ptero on a lot of plant names. And carya means nut. It's a cousin of the walnut, which is genus Carya. Rhoifolia means leaves look like a pomegranate. Okay, roa is pomegranate and folia is leaf. So this is not just a Japanese plant. It is more of a broad Asian plant. And this one here was planted in 2003. It is 58 feet tall and has grown. It's known for growing very, very quickly. We have another Pterocarya elsewhere in the garden, and it is also a quick grower. So if you want a rapidly growing tree, you couldn't go wrong with Pterocarya, except we don't want to plant it by our driveway, do we? No, we do not. It'll certainly crack it. Compound leaves that hang down, they're very pretty. My favorite part about it, though, occurs in the fall, which is the seed heads. I do want to point out the really cool bark, which is my second favorite thing about this plant. Yeah. Very, very pretty bark. Very great to look at in the winter. Let's see if we can smell the leaves. The leaves are supposedly fragrant. Let me get an older one. These are all new growth. I don't know if the fragrance will be on the new growth or not. A little bit. Yeah, it smells a little resiny. It's pleasant. So tree number 3 on our tour, Pterocarya rhoifolia. Okay, this is the next tree on our stop, Melia toosendan. The common name is Chinaberry. And you can see why I picked it as a tree-mendous tree. It is really, really big. It's got gorgeous, gorgeous bark. Again, you wouldn't want to plant it next to your driveway. And what you can't see, because it hasn't started flowering or leafing out yet, that the whole canopy will be covered, absolutely covered later this month in light lavender flowers. Completely covered. It's why I picked it. Like I said, my office is right here in this green building. So every day when I go to my car, I can look up in late April, early May, and see a tremendous flower show this thing puts on. And then it leaves out, which is a little bit unusual for its species. It leaves out after it flowers. A lot of individuals of Melia toosendan leaf out as they are flowering. So this one puts on an especially good show. We don't know when this was planted here, but we received it in 1989. I would assume we would have planted it in 89 or 90. So, and it is currently 69 feet tall. This is again a southwest China to North India tree. So it's southern China, northern India, northeast India area tree. It is the flowers are fragrant, by the way, and you can smell them even though they're way up there, 69 feet above us. You can smell them if the breeze is just right, which is really, really nice. It produces, after it flowers in the fall, it produces tons and tons of berries. About yay big, and they come down in the fall. They're all over the ground here, and we collect some of the seed. This tree is considered to be somewhat weedy here in the U.S., and so although it used to be quite popular, it was brought into the U.S. first in the 1830s, planted all over the South. They thought it was a great tree, but it has proven to be a little bit too weedy for certain states, Alabama and places like that. Texas, Hawaii, of course, everything's a weed in Hawaii, and a few other states as well. It is in the family Meliaceae, which means it's a cousin of mahogany. And I understand it has a very high quality timber as well, although it's not really used as a timber plant. So the leaves and the fruit are used widely as insecticides, okay? And it's also used in traditional Chinese medicine, the tinctures from the fruit. The fruit are toxic, but they are sweet and edible. So people eat them. If you eat as few as 6, you can die from it. But they're sweet, they're tasty, so you wouldn't know. It's not like they're advertising that they're poisonous by being bitter or anything. And there are cases of Melia poisoning, but it really mostly affects livestock, more so than humans. Human poisonings are pretty rare. Birds do not get poisoned by it, and so they eat the seed and spread it, which is one of the reasons why it's weedy. Insects are poisoned by it, which is one of the reasons it's so useful. They will take the leaves and the fruit, and mix them into agricultural crops that they are storing. And if insects try and get into that crop and eat it, they'll accidentally eat some of the poison and die. And so you don't lose very much of your crop in storage. That is, but you have to be real careful to get all the pieces and parts out before you eat the crop yourself. It is used a lot in traditional Chinese medicine, so much so that there's a huge market for this product called Fructus Meliae toosendan, or FMT. You can buy it in little bottles. It's basically ethanolic extracts of the fruit of this plant, and you put a little on your tongue, and it's supposed to deworm you and other things like that. I wouldn't, personally. This plant is an Asian plant, but there is fossil evidence of it having once lived in the United States as well. So millions of years ago, this was a native plant. The insecticide that's inside the leaves and the fruit is very similar to neem. I don't know if any of you buy neem at Lowe's and spray it on your plants for whitefly and whatnot. So the property is very chemically similar to neem. Melia derives from the Greek word for ash, because apparently taxonomists thought that it looked like an ash tree, and so they called it the genus Melia. And as I mentioned, toosendan is a Latinization of the Chinese word. I said Indian, Chinese word for this tree. Questions?
How do you know it's 69 feet tall?
So I have a volunteer group. It's a husband and wife who go around and they measure the trees using a clinometer, and they record all the numbers, and I plug them into the computer and get the actual height from the angle and the distance away from the tree. Any of you who have ever taken high school geometry know about angles and distances and calculating the other side and this and that on a triangle. It's exactly that, except you're on foot and you're doing it for a practical reason and not just to get a grade.
When you said they're gonna get like if you crush the fruit, it'll become like a juice kind of thing, and for the medicine, and also when you said when the fruits are kind of poisonous, when they make it into the liquid, will they take out the poison and then just store it and then just give it?
That's a good question. So when you take an extract from a fruit, you're not necessarily taking every chemical out of that fruit. Sometimes you use water for the extract, and sometimes you use alcohol or other things. And depending on what solvent you use, what liquid, different things will come out. And yes, so indeed, I don't know if FMT is less toxic than the straight fruit, but because there are hundreds and hundreds of active chemicals in the plant. There are actually a lot of research being done on the medicinal uses of this plant, dozens and dozens of articles, and cataloging the hundreds of chemicals that you can extract from it. And so, but indeed, it might actually make it less toxic to take the extract, but I don't know. Don't do it.
What if you had 5? Would you and then the next day, if you had just 1, could you die because of that?
That's a good question. So the question was, if you ate 5 fruit one day and then waited a day and ate another fruit, maybe. There is an additive effect because it takes your body a certain amount of time to break down the toxins. And indeed, some of the poisoning cases are not from an acute dose where they ate a whole bunch of it at once, but more that they started eating a little bit several days in a row and it built up more than their liver could get rid of, and it built up to a toxic level. So, and I said 6. It's actually a range. 6 might kill a child. 6 probably wouldn't kill a big guy like me. Might be more like 10. There's a range.
Okay.
All right. We're going to go to this big tree behind us here. So this is our next tree-mendous tree, Bischofia polycarpa. All right, so also called the Chinese bishop wood. That's a much easier name to remember. Bischofia, by the way, the genus is named for a person, a German botanist, Gottlieb Wilhelm T.G. Bischoff. Okay, so that's, they named this genus after him. Polycarpa just means lots of fruit. And indeed, this is another fruiting tree. It produces largish berries, raisin-sized berries. These are edible. And the seed inside of them is also edible, and it's a high oil content, and can be pressed and the oil extracted, and it's used in industrial purposes. This one we received in 1988, and with an unknown planting date, we can assume it was probably planted pretty soon after 1988. Its current height is 71 feet. And this is a tree that only lives in China. By the way, we are in our Asian Valley garden. This whole garden, back from where the Pterocarya was a couple plants ago, all the way up to this wall behind me, is called our Asian Valley. And it features plants from Asia and a few Americans for comparison, but mostly Asian plants, because plants from Eastern and Southeastern China and other parts in Japan and Korea and other parts of Asia tend to do very well in the Southeast US. And so we like to have a garden to show that fact off. This is perhaps the only large specimen of this tree in the United States right now. This came in the 80s through the United States National Arboretum, and we got some from them, and then theirs died. Okay, they had a cold snap and theirs died. They're a little bit further north than us. This is known as a very, very long-lived tree. So this would be probably a better choice for planting in your garden than that, except that is clearly outlived its lifespan and is doing just fine. It's in the family Phylanthaceae, which is a third cousin twice removed from Euphorbia. And so it doesn't, as far as I know, it doesn't have the latex in it. And it is very rare in Western cultivation, all right? The leaves, which are just leafing out right now, and if they were a little bit bigger and we were a lot closer, we could see that they have a really pretty red petiole and 3 red veins in the middle of the leaf. I guess that's probably an attractive feature when you first buy the plant, but certainly not 45 years later. The fruit are apparently very, very tart, and in Asia, it's kind of like us and cranberries. They don't just eat them straight. In fact, in Asia, they really just brew them into drinks, into alcohol. And okay, so that's that. All the trivia about this plant. But you can see, just look up. By the way, really enjoy your time today looking at the Tree-mendous trees. Stop, quit walking, tilt your head up and really enjoy it. This is an angle you don't often get in a garden. Most of us in the garden are looking at our own height and lower, and so that we can walk and watch at the same time. We very rarely actually stop and look at this just incredible view above our heads. Okay, our next plant is a pretty common plant. We've done some common plants and we've done some rare plants. And this is one of the most common plants you'll find in a garden center today. This is a Japanese maple, Acer palmatum. Acer palmatum, or Japanese maple, is one of the signature plants or groups of plants of the Arboretum. JC loved this plant. And it is said that he wanted it to be that from wherever you're standing in the garden, you could see a Japanese maple somewhere. Okay, it's not strictly true. We have 11 acres, but we have over 100 Japanese maples, 110, 115, something like that. And so it is, in the broad sense, that is a true statement. This is on my Tree-mendous trees list, this particular specimen. There are thousands and thousands of cultivars of Japanese maple with all kinds of forms. The leaf color varies: yellow, red, green, thin lobes, thick lobes, small leaves, big leaves, tightly packed so that they overlap like shingles. And then there are differences in the form. There are weepers and extreme dwarfs that never get taller than a few feet tall, and then ones like this that are broad. I picked this one as a Tree-mendous tree because for a Japanese maple, this is a tremendously sized Japanese maple. Most of them are sold as what are called dwarf trees, and are generally in the range of 4 feet for a real dwarf, up to 12 or 15 feet for a big one. And this guy, clearly, this one is, let's see, it's been here since 1988, is 28 feet tall. And so I just want you to know that even small plants can become tree-mendous over time. Plants never really stop growing like we do. Even when they get old and tired, they still put on little bits of growth every year, provided they get enough water and whatnot. I want you to notice that when you see an older specimen like this, look how the branches are kind of layering, and they have this layered leaf effect. This is an extremely beautiful tree to stand under and look up through. Very, very peaceful, and just a beautiful, beautiful plant. Just to kind of sit here and enjoy. Japanese maples generally have very, very good fall foliage in yellows, oranges, and reds. I think this one might be red, but it's just a plain green wild type species that we have here in the garden. And shameless plug for our upcoming Raulston Blooms plant sale. We do have lots and lots of Japanese maples in the sale. We are actually focusing on those this year. We focus on different groups, different plants in different years. This year it's 15, maybe 20 different cultivars of Japanese maple. All right, our next stop is quite a ways away. This will be our biggest gap between plants, so stick together, don't get lost. I'll try and walk slow. Okay, the next tree, and this is tree number 8 on the Tree-mendous Trees tour. I put this one in just for Blake. You're welcome. Just last week, we had a presentation here, a video, and Blake said this is one of his favorite trees to come and sit and contemplate. And it really is bizarre to look at and sit and really just enjoy this multi-trunked shape and all the roots winding their way through the soil. An extremely beautiful tree. Raleigh is the city of oaks, and this is an oak. So I had to include at least one. We actually have 2 on the tour. This is a ring-cupped oak. It is an Asian species, and it is evergreen. So it never loses its leaves. These are, how many years old they are. It is it's Quercus glauca. Quercus meaning the old Latin name, the common name for oak, and glauca meaning silvery. The undersides, I can't really see it here, but the undersides of the leaves, at least certain times of the year, are a silvery color, lighter color at least than the tops of the leaves. Probably more apparent on new growth high up in the canopy than it is down on these older leaves. Ring-cupped oak. Some people split this off into a different genus called Cyclobalanopsis, but we lump it all into the oaks here, the Quercus. Now, this is a very useful oak tree. It's evergreen. It's pretty popular actually as a landscape tree, more so in Asia than here, but you can get it here too. It's not necessarily a gigantic oak. Okay, it tops out 30 to 50 feet. And this fellow here, my measuring crew has not gotten to this part of the garden yet, so I don't know, but I can look up and say that's at least 30, if not 40 or 45 feet tall. Okay, so it is near the top end of its size. It is normally a single trunked tree with a nice round top on it. It is normally a very symmetrical tree, but we had this unusual event in the mid-'80s. Was it 83 or 85? I was a little kid, I hardly remember, but we had a once in 100-year freeze, and it got down to minus 13 degrees Celsius. Not Celsius, Fahrenheit. Too much science in here. So minus 13 degrees Fahrenheit, very, very cold. And it froze a lot of plants, killed a lot. This guy froze it to the ground, and it managed to re-sprout a bunch of suckers from the dead stump. And these are the suckers, what it is 40 years later, 35 years later. And so there is another specimen, a multi-trunked Quercus glauca in Georgia. The same thing happened for the same freeze. But this is not a very common occurrence to have happen. What do I have here for trivia? I already told you the good stuff about Quercus and glauca. This plant predates the JCRA. So before the Arboretum was founded in 1976, and before that, for 40 years before that, from 36 to 76, this belonged to NC State as a horticulture research station, but it wasn't an official arboretum. And so there were professors who were given a plot of land, and they would do their strawberry berries or do their turf grass or do their rhododendrons or whatever on it. And sometime in those years, some oaks and other things got planted here, and those still exist to this day on our property. We really like these big old trees. So who knows how old it is? Certainly, it wasn't planted in 36, probably. So it was already planted by 76. So it's either 40 or 80 years old. Some days I feel 40 and some days I feel 82. I kind of know how that is. Like some oaks, this tree is very tolerant of poor conditions. It's a good oak for near a road or something like that. It tolerates poor soil, clay, compact, stuff like that. Although this is a very, very big specimen in the wild, sometimes they just stay like shrub-sized. So very extreme difference in heights between wild specimens. So oaks, what kind of fruit do oaks make? Acorns, yes. And acorns, do they taste good or not? No. They're bitter. Yeah, they have these chemicals in them called tannins. You can leach out the tannins if you leave them in running water. The Native Americans would leave them in a creek for weeks and weeks and weeks, and eventually the tannins and most of the nutrition would be leached out of it, and then you could eat the bland, flavorless fruit. Apparently, the acorns on this tree are sweet, and sometimes don't have much tannins or any tannins in them. So sometimes these are edible. I'm not going to try them every year. I don't know about y'all. The next tree is right behind us. Now, I promised to do a sequoia earlier in the talk, and we're going to talk about this sequoia. I picked this one, A, because it's close to this guy, and B, because it's bigger than the other one. So this is Sequoia sempervirens, a coastal redwood. Sequoias are native along the west coast, California and Oregon, in these kind of cloud forested areas where they get this fog that rolls in off the coast and gets trapped by the hills and accumulates in these areas, and where it stays really moist like that, this is where this species is native. As you can see, you can be very successful with this tree here in North Carolina as well. We have the right heat for it. It doesn't mind our heat. We have a lot less water than it normally gets. In the places where they're native, often the rainfall is up to 100 inches a year, and that doesn't even count the fog and the dew and other things that accumulate on it. Now, we will never ever have redwoods as big as they do in California. The ones in California are the tallest trees on the planet. The tallest one ever measured was 380 feet. 300-foot trees are they're rare, but they're plenty of them around. And 200 feet certainly is normal, but we will never get trees that tall here. In order to get water from the ground up 200 to 300 feet in the air, using the mechanisms that plants use is nearly impossible. They actually rely on the fog and the dew and the rain that comes in to actually hit the leaves. And if you come up after I'm done and poke the bark, you'll feel it's actually a little bit spongy and soft. And it soaks into this like a sponge. And so the tree is not just absorbing water from the ground, it is absorbing water through the bark and through the leaves as well. And so in places where you don't have all that water in the air, you'll never get a big tree. So, I would be surprised if we ever got one to 100 feet. But they're still beautiful conifers. Now, the conifer we saw earlier, the Metasequoia glyptostroboides, is deciduous. This is an evergreen one. But they are related, believe it or not. The Metasequoia is believed to be one of the parents in a hybridization event that it took place millions and millions of years ago between Metasequoia and the giant redwood, the Sequoia dendron gigantea, to produce this as an offspring. This is a very unusual conifer in that it is, this might be a little over some heads, but it is actually a polyploid. It doesn't have the normal 2 sets of chromosomes, like you have one from your mom and dad, and trees usually have one from their mom and dad. This actually has 6 sets. Okay, so there was a tripling and then a doubling, and you get 6 sets of chromosomes during some weird cell division things going on. And that's what happened during this hybridization event. You ended up with this polyploid conifer, almost unheard of in nature. This tree also has some other really interesting traits. For a conifer, most conifers never will sprout a new a sucker or anything off of the trunk or even off of the collar on the ground once they reach a certain age. This one does. And so in the redwood forest, if these things fall down, you will get suckers coming up along the trunk in a straight line. You can often see where an old tree used to be because there'll be a straight line of new redwoods growing, and a 300-foot long straight line of redwoods. And you can say, oh, there's a dead one there at one point. Let's see, Sequoia. The genus name Sequoia was given to commemorate a Native American whose name was Sequoia, spelled a little differently, and he was a Native American who was famous for being the first. It was Cherokee, and he wrote out a symbology, an alphabet for the Cherokee language. Native Americans, most of them did not have a written language, but he was educated in an Eastern school, actually in a school, not just on a tribe, and learned how to read and write in English, and then made up the symbology so you could write down Cherokee as well. So this genus was named to commemorate him. And sempervirens means always green. Semper, like Semper Fi for the Marines. Semper means always, and virens is a Latin word that means green. Okay, so we've talked about some of these trees are only supposed to live 20 years. Some of them live, a relatively long time. These are some of the oldest living trees on the planet. Now, the very oldest ones are the pines. Anyway, they can be 8,000 years old. It's not uncommon for these to reach 2,000 years of age. So if you plant one, it will survive for you. It does very well here. We have 4 or 5 in the garden. There are about 20 or so redwoods around Raleigh. About 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, a fellow got a hold of some seedlings from a West Coast nursery and gave them to his family and friends, and they planted them in their gardens around Raleigh. WRAL did a news story on it called The Hidden Gems of Raleigh, where they went around and tried to find all the redwoods that were growing. And they are indeed like the size of this. They stick way above the surrounding pine trees and whatnot. You can easily pick them out if you know they're there. There's a grove of them growing in Wilson, and there's actually some growing in the Blue Ridge Mountains as well. So it grows all over North Carolina, provided it's not particularly drought tolerant, though. Okay, our next stop, we're going to go back to the White Garden and through the arbor to our next tree. Okay. Our next tree on the Tree-mendous trees tour is this guy that doesn't have any leaves yet, but he has these really cool zigzaggy branches. It is related to a weedy tree we have around here called Albizia julibrissin, or the mimosa tree. Most of y'all know that. It grows along the side of the road, and it doesn't ever get really big. It's got these tufts, almost hair-like tufts of pink flowers in the late spring. You know which one I'm talking about? The mimosa tree. It's considered a junk tree, although people do sell it and grow it in their gardens too. It is very pretty, especially the purple-leaved one. This is a Korean relative of Albizia julibrissin. This is Albizia coreana. Of course, coreana meaning from Korea. And Albizia coreana, this one here, we actually don't know when it was planted or even what year we got it. Our records for it are so old. We think we got it around 1984. And we got it from a arboretum in Korea called Cholopo Arboretum. We do know that. The common name for this is the Calcora mimosa. Calcora being in India. This tree is native from India all the way to Korea and Japan. And in India, that's the common name for the tree. So they just put it into the common name that we use as well, Calcora mimosa. This is a Korean version of that tree, and it is a bit bigger than the normal Calcora mimosa you see growing in most of Asia. And in fact, we've been told that this might be the tallest species of this, tallest individual of this species in the world. This is a species that normally grows around 30 feet, and my tree measuring team has gotten to this one. It's 38.9 feet tall. Okay, so the weedy one produces these magenta pink tuft of hair-like flowers, almost look like if you fly fish, like a fly. This one produces that exact same tuft of flowers, but they're white. Okay, it's a similar leaf too, a little more coarse, but it's a bigger plant as well. The junk tree, the Albizia julibrisson, is fairly weedy, seeds around, and the version of this tree that is in China and India is a little more weedy. This particular one here, this Korean version, is not weedy at all for us. It barely produces seeds and seedlings. I was asking Tim about this. He says he only once in a while will find a seedling. It shouldn't be considered a weed at all here, even though its relatives are weedy. So Albizia, the genus name, was named for an Italian, a guy from Florence named Filippo degli Albizzi. Okay, and coreana means from Korea. So if you're a taxonomist, especially in the 1700s and 1800s, and it's when they're discovering thousands and thousands of plants and you have to write them all down and get them a name, often you start using the names of your friends in the genus name. So you see a lot of genus names that commemorate somebody's name, and usually it's another taxonomist, but I guess if it's late at night and you're running out of names, it's people you know. All right, our next tree is truly a tree-mendous tree. You can actually see it from here. It's this big honking tree right behind us. Our next to last tree on the Tree-mendous trees tour is the willow oak, Quercus phellos. This is a native to eastern United States, and in Raleigh, it's probably one of the most widely planted oak trees that you'll find in gardens and parks and things like that. So some of the trees we've seen are very, very rare. The only one in the U.S. or the biggest one in the U.S. or whatever. This one is as common as dirt. Okay, but it is certainly a tree-mendous tree. This particular specimen behind me is 92 feet tall, and it can grow up to 120 feet in the wild. So we are getting very close to its like maximum size. This tree is another one of those trees that predates the Arboretum. Okay, I have actually looked at aerial photos of this property from the 30s, right after NC State purchased it in 1936, and this is not on it, at least not big enough that you can see from an airplane with a 1936 digital camera. Okay, but by the 50s, you can see it. So we're guessing that it was probably planted in the late 30s. So this thing is 80 years old-ish, and it predates the Arboretum by 40 years. Okay, it was already old when we opened up.
What about the one next to it?
That's the same species, and it also predates the Arboretum.
Yeah.
There used to be a house right in here that we have taken down. The house was the offices of the crew that managed this property for NC State, and also had an apartment for students and stuff like that. We used to have our classes, hold classes in it long, long, long ago. Has anyone been around the Arboretum that long that they remember the old building, the old house? You do? Yeah, the old brick house. So this is a willow oak. It's in the, oaks can be broadly broken down into two groups, the red oak group and the white oak group. This is a red oak group. The reason it's so popular in Raleigh as a landscape tree is incredibly adaptable. Sun, shade, crappy soil, good soil, you name it. This tree will grow, it will grow rapidly, and as you can see, it will grow into a beautiful arching, spreading habit. Its fall color is brown, but as we discussed earlier, there's good brown, and there's pretty brown, and there's not pretty brown. This is a pretty brown. It's not quite as coppery as like the Metasequoia, but it is a coppery brown as well. Not known for like, it's not yellow or anything really, really showy though. If you care about supporting wildlife, oaks are a tree for you, okay? Oak, the genus Quercus, is one of the best genera of plants that you can grow in your garden for supporting wildlife. One oak tree can support dozens of mammals and hundreds of species of insect and dozens of species of birds, okay? The acorns, the leaves are fed upon by caterpillars, and the trees parts of the tree are used for nests and stuff like that. Acorns will feed squirrels, which you might like or you might not like, wild turkeys, and all kinds of mammals, deer, unfortunately, and ducks, and lots and lots of birds, including woodpeckers and blue jays, like to consume the fruit and live in the tree and stuff, and eat the insects in the tree, and And lots of, especially moths, like to complete their life cycle in oak trees. So if you like gardens, not just for the aesthetic beauty of the plants, but also to support the wildlife around it, put an oak in your garden. We're standing here today and you can hear birds and stuff like that. Those kind of, that extra beauty you get is enhanced when you have an oak tree, which might not have big flowers or flashy color or anything like that, but it is a really, really, really good plant to put in your garden. All right, we already know Quercus is the old Latin name. It's just what they called oaks. Phellos, the epithet there, is the ancient Greek name for the cork oak, which is a species of oak that grows in Spain. For some reason, Linnaeus must have been up late that night, and he said, I need a word for this epithet. Let's just use Phellos. And so he called this oak Quercus phellos. Oaks have heavy producing years and light producing years, and the heavy producing years are called mast years. It's hypothesized that the reason for that is if they produce the same amount of acorns every year, the same amount of deer would come and eat all of them, and there'd be none to make baby oak trees from. So they produce a little bit, and then one year they produce a whole lot, more than anyone can eat, and hopefully that leaves a few to grow into this. Okay, we're going to move on to our very last plant. We're going this way, back towards the gift shop. All right, so this is the final tree on the tour, and we're going to end the tour right by where you came in. And this is probably the most signature plant that I'm covering today at the Arboretum. This is a cultivar of Lagerstroemia foriae. The cultivar name is Fantasy. Lagerstroemia foriae is a species that's native to Japan and southern Japan. And in the 1950s, a researcher with the United States National Arboretum, Dr. David Creech, was sent over to Japan to collect plant material to see if it'd be good landscape material for the United States. And he collected seed off of this crepe myrtle out there and brought it back, and he distributed that seed around. And this is way before the Arboretum, but someone at NC State ended up with a few, and we planted a few. I don't know how many we've had in the past, but we currently have 4, I want to say, of those seedlings left, and they're now, 65 years old. And then in the 1980s, J.C. Raulston was the director of the Arboretum, and he decided he was going to make some name selections, and he picked 2. This was one of them, and he gave it the name Fantasy, and he picked another one further away, and he called that Townhouse. So Fantasy crepe myrtle and Townhouse crepe myrtle are J.C. Raulston selections of seeds that were grown from collections made in the 50s in Yakushima, Japan. Fantasy he selected it because you can see its sibling right here next to it. It's more kind of laying out and open. And this one is more upright and vase-shaped. And so he picked it because he preferred this shape as a garden plant over that. That one doesn't have a name. That's just Lagerstroemia foriae. And it also has fantastic bark color. In the middle of the summer, this outer layer of bark will peel off and expose a rich cinnamon brown bark underneath, and is absolutely beautiful. It is the main reason to grow this plant. We like to grow crepe myrtles because of their bright colors. That's Lagerstroemia indica. That's more from China and India. This is from Japan, and it just produces plain white flowers, which aren't bad, but they're not super bright purple and pink and this and that. This is one of the most photographed plants at the Arboretum, as the person who manages the photograph database should know. We have hundreds of photos of it. Why did he pick Lagerstroemia foriae? Well, it is much more cold hardy than indica, and it is much more resistant to powdery mildew, which the modern cultivars don't really have that problem anymore. They've bred it out. But back in the 50s and 60s, it was an issue. The United States National Arboretum took this plant and then crossed it with Lagerstroemia indica to make the first round of hybrid crepe myrtles. And they gave them all names of Indian tribes. So Natchez, which is one I have in my yard, in the backyard. Hopi, Tuscarora. I wrote a few more down, but they were there's a series from the 60s that came out in a variety of different flower colors, all from the indica side, except for Natchez, which is white, and the larger habit and the disease resistance and the nice bark from the Foriae side. This is, I guess you call it the canonical Lagerstromia Foriae fantasy. Everyone, you can buy it in garden centers around. It is truly a beautiful tree, and they all were started from this individual plant right here, and it is one of the signature plants of the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. The little bit of trivia I have, let's see, Lagerstromia was named for a Swedish merchant. I guess Linnaeus ran out of plant buddy friends and he had to go to his merchant friends, Magnus von Lagerstrom. Okay, and Foriae is also named for a person, a Frenchman who was a missionary and a botanist. His name was Urbain Jean Fourier. Okay, so two people were commemorated with this name. This is basically my favorite plant here at the Arboretum. I thought good that I end it here. I actually love this one so much. Even before I worked here, I have one in my own front yard. It is not nearly this big, but it grows very fast. Crepe myrtles are known, sometimes known for having not just bright colored flowers, but also a bright fall foliage, reds and things like that. This is yellow. Some people say it's plain. It's a beautiful yellow in my yard, so I like it. It's a good yellow. And it is absolutely covered with pollinators when it is in bloom. You can hear them. If you leave your windows open, you can just hear them zzz, buzzing around. It's a great plant. They're not considered invasive. They don't seed around very much. They do seed around, and you can look up. These are all the seed pods from last year's fruit, but they don't make very many seedlings. In my own yard, I get a couple a year. It's not so invasive that it's going to displace native. The problem with crepe myrtles is our love of them. We have planted so many of them in the South since antebellum times. It's been popular for hundreds of years now in the United States. And what happens when you plant a monoculture of something, too much of something, and you crowd them too close together? A pest comes in. You know, we've run into this problem with other plants, Photinia and other plants. And so crepe myrtle bark scale is the new pest that is attacking crepe myrtles all over the place. Our director of horticulture, Greg Page, talks about that particular bug quite a bit. And it is a really tough one. A lot of people they're just told to cut the tree down, but you can
attack any variety of crepe.
Yeah, and you can treat it, but you have to inject chemicals and things like that. Crepe myrtle bark scale.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can see them. I don't see it on this. It's just little white, warty looking things on the surface of the bark. In the ornamental gardening world, we run into this problem where there's a plant that we love and we overplant it and then ruin it, and then we have to move on to the next one. We're working right now. That's happening with Loropetalum. People are planting it by the millions, and I imagine in a few years that'll be the next one that we have to cut down and get rid of. All right, that concludes today's Tree-mendous Trees Plant Lovers Tour. Thank you all very much for coming. Buy a plant on the way out, buy a t-shirt. Please do whatever you can to support the J.C. Raulston Arboretum.
Buy books.
Buy books too, yeah. We have cheap gardening books. They're $1.